This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
You're not going to necessarily get stronger this time of year, but if you can maintain as much as you can from what you gained throughout the offseason, you're going to hold up physically more, we feel like, especially down the stretch, because the wear and tear on your body, right, it takes a toll on everybody. So focusing on flexibility and to build into that conditioning.
This week's National Coach of the Week, presented by Modern Football Technology, takes us to New Jersey, where Don Bosco Prep ended Bergen Catholic's reign over the Garden State. On Friday night, the Ironmen jumped out early, leaned on their toughness late, and came away with a 14-19 win that snapped Bergen's 28-game win streak against state opponents. As a result, Don Bosco jumped 72 spots nationally, is now ranked number 26 in the country by Max Preps. Leading the way was the head coach Dan Sabella, who joins us now. Coach Sabella, congratulations on being named our National Coach of the Week. And before we get into the details of this win, I want to make sure you have the opportunity to also recognize your staff and how they prepared your team for this challenge.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on here, Keith. And our guys really, they worked extremely hard. We thought it was really a collective effort in all three phases of the game. Our coordinators, our position coaches had our guys prepared. This is a big rivalry game for us, so the two teams are very familiar with themselves, and being able to have a few new wrinkles every now and again, as well as being really sound in what you do, is so important, because these games can, any given play can make the difference. So really proud of our guys. They've been really consistent throughout the year. We got a good chemistry amongst our staff, and we're looking to just keep that rolling all the way through.
One of the things you and I talked about before we got going is something that does enable your team to keep it rolling through strong the whole way through. And at times it becomes a pain point for staffs. I remember back early in my career, not necessarily having the best plan for it, but continuing to build your team in the weight room throughout the season is an important thing. And, it's really got to be handled more than just lip service and with a spot on the calendar. You still need that attention to detail. We'd love to hear about your philosophy on that.
Listen, we all know toughness is a big part of football, right? And you mentioned it, not just in the game we won Friday night, but in any game. You want to have that part of your identity, and you want to be able to hang your hat on that, especially late in the fourth quarter. And that's developed in the offseason, right? That's developed in your strength and conditioning program. And our special teams coordinator, linebacker coach, strength conditioning coach, Tank Daniels, is our guy and has done an amazing job building that culture, as well as a bunch of other guys on the staff who've gotten behind that. So making sure, it's really important for us to get 2 lifts a week all the way through the season. I mean, all the way through, hopefully, the state championship game in late November, early December, being consistent with that. We want our guys, we tell them, you're not going to necessarily get stronger this time of year, but if you can maintain as much as you can from what you gained throughout the offseason, you're going to hold up physically more, we feel like, especially down the stretch, because the wear and tear on your body, right, it takes a toll on everybody. So focusing on flexibility and then to build into that conditioning, we're going to condition on Mondays and Tuesdays for sure, and make sure that our guys, are fresh in the fourth quarter. Again, you focus on that stuff a lot in the summer, and if you're not careful, sometimes you're worried about so many other things, and maybe you're not paying as much attention to that. But I feel like our staff has done a really good job of holding each other accountable to making sure that's important to us, and we stay consistent with it.
Yeah, that's such an important thing, in the staff holding each other accountable. And while you have a guy who leads that effort, it really can't fall just on him, and just thinking back to my days at the high school level running the weight room. I mean, if you stick one guy in there and it's only important to that guy, it kind of loses its focus. So we'd love to hear logistically, what does this look like for you over the course of the week? When are you doing these workouts, in particular to days, and, how it fits with practice? And then how do you run the weight room so that, it's tough, right? Having practice, hitting the weight room, keeping the energy, it's a tough thing to do, but how do you guys do it?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's challenging because, like, for example, yesterday we had a JV game on Monday. So who's playing, who's not playing, who's staying back. We have a study hall here that we do as well. So just, time's important to us. We have players who have some commutes to get here and whatnot. So just really having that structure and trying to stick to the efficiency of being on time and making sure every minute counts. We're a Monday, Tuesday lift team. So if you didn't play in the JV game and you stayed back, we were in the weight room early. We were in the weight room at 2:00 and we cut our lifts down. Our lifts are 45 minutes. We're going to do an upper body and a lower body day. And, following those up with, like I said, some flexibility and stretching as well. So 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll get up and practice after that as well. Monday's a little lighter, but today's going to be a heavy work day. So Tuesdays are really, like I think most programs, Tuesdays are work day. Tuesday, the kids know it's going to be the latest day of the week. It's going to be the biggest grind of the week. We got to get meetings in there. We got to get install in there as well. We're full pads on Tuesdays. We want to bang. We want to have a physical practice on Tuesdays. So being able to manage working really hard but not doing too much is certainly something that we pay a lot of attention to. But that's really the routine we're in right now. And, you tweak it when you have to, but we feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mondays and Tuesdays. And, I don't think there's any right way to do it. Maybe some things a little bit more optimal than others, but the decision to use those 2 days, why does that fit best for you? Philosophically, what do you like about doing it on those 2 days of the week?
Yeah, just being able, Friday night is when the majority of our games are. So we feel like the recovery, we have enough recovery. And just like you, I'm sure we've talked to a lot of coaches and picked a lot of people's brains on how they do this. And it's changed a lot over the years, as you and I know. I've talked to some coaches who they're lifting later in the week, Wednesdays. I've even had some guys tell me they'll lift the day before a game. So you got to do what's best for you and you got to be willing to keep an open mind. And I certainly try to do that. We certainly try to do that here. But you know how it is, Keith. We're all creatures of habit, right? You get in a routine a little bit and you feel like things are going in positive directions and you stick with it.
Let's break down the Monday and the Tuesday lifts and what those look like for you. What are the things you guys are doing on each of those days?
We said upper body, lower body, a lot of core lifts, not going super heavy. We're going 75% of our maxes. We're going, in that like 8 rep range, 3, maybe 4 sets, depending on the exercise, up 6 to 8 reps. Tempo is important to us. We want to move. We want high energy. We want as many coaches as many boots on the ground and coaches in the room as possible, walking around the room, motivating guys, again, holding each other accountable, making sure, you got 75% of what you're supposed to have on there and getting the maximum effort that we can out of these guys and not something that we're just going through the motions. Because if you're just going through the motions, you're probably better off just not doing it.
And then from the way that the weight room functions, how you're moving guys through this, what's the organization look like there? I mean, you see weight rooms, you'll see it on social media, guys who are to the strictest where you look at all the stations and everybody's repping at the same time, to stuff where it's loose and guys are walking around getting their work in. How do you guys approach it?
We try to break it up, into skill, combo, and line. So there's 3 groups. So imagine 2 or 3 exercises per group. And, we're going to put a time on it. Hey, we got 12-minute rotations here, 15-minute rotations, 3 sets for each exercise. If you're done early, get a 4th set in. And guys are certainly moving, but it's a super set, 3 exercise, bang, 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 back to the first one. And then everybody rotates through. So we're getting as many reps and being as efficient as possible.
Just a quick break here from our interview with Coach Sabella. Up next, you'll hear from Justin Ersick, the defensive coordinator at Folsom High School. He's one of the many coaches using modern football technology to spot tendencies in real time and make smarter adjustments. Listen to how he explains the way their staff uses those insights to attack protections and get an edge at halftime.
Now they're doing slides, but where are they sending the slide? Because we have protection beaters, but we got to know where the slide's going in order to call it. Maybe the slide is always going opposite of the running back. We know that we could start sending what we would call our wham pressure to beat man slide protection, and which side to send that pressure to, because we're getting the tendencies at halftime of these are where the slides are going. Maybe wide zone is their favorite run play, and they've historically done that to the tight end, but now they're going away from the tight end. So we can find things like that, get tendencies on play direction to draw up movement and pressure that beats how the O-line is blocking it.
What Coach Ersick just shared is exactly why modern football has become a go-to tool for top programs. With live tagging and instant analytics, you get actionable data on protections, tendencies, and play direction before your players even come off the field. And the best part? It's not too late to get started this season. The interface is easy, onboarding is quick, and your staff can be fully set up by Friday night. Visit modernfootball.com to book a demo and give your team the competitive edge. For guys who might have injuries, how do you handle those? How do you adjust the workouts to make sure that they're still working at it? I mean, I think the last thing you want for injured guys is that they're not doing anything.
Yeah, hey, that's back to what we spoke about, right? Like just manage it and being on top of it. I mean, I can tell you just yesterday was Monday and all of a sudden it's like 3 or 4 guys who aren't in the lift that are in the trainer's room and they've been in there for an extended period of time. And then you're talking to them and you're asking what's going on. And it's like, well, it was busy in there and they didn't get to me for X amount of minutes and stuff like that. And it's like, well, hey, listen, you got an ankle injury. Why aren't you out there getting your upper body lift in? And then, when they tell you, all right, it's a good time for you to get in here and get your treatment, then you leave the workout. You don't just sit there for 30 minutes, right? And when you could have been working out. So that's all part of it. And I appreciate you, bringing that up because you can always get better at stuff like that, right? And then you go out and you condition and you're on the field. And again, guys who, again, we'll go back to that ankle injury. Well, he better be on the rowing machine, getting some type of conditioning. And so you got to be creative. You got to lean on your staff and try to work together as best as possible.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends who coached, I think he got it from his college. He went to Mount Union or got the idea from someone there at least, because they ran into a string of injuries. He took over a program that needed help. So they took their just plain white practice jerseys and put a big red X, like, the medical X or cross on it. And those guys really quick, because he also then had the trainers could identify those guys and they weren't allowed to just stand around. And so real quick, it solved that issue. I think you do have to be creative, attentive with it, or guys will slip through the cracks. I mean, we've got big teams, rosters. It's hard to manage everybody. So for him, that was the way, one, to identify who those guys were, and two, to have a plan for them.
Absolutely. Great idea. That's an excellent example.
Yeah. He said the numbers dwindled really quick on the guys who were injured, right? So we know those, especially when you're in a new program. There's those guys who got to question why they're there. So I think that sorts it out real quick. Last thing, Coach, from just a record-keeping standpoint, I know a lot of coaches during the offseason certainly use a number of things to keep track of where their guys are at. Do you guys record anything during this time? And if so, what do you use?
To be honest with you, we don't. Maybe that's something we should think about. Our training staff certainly does a nice job of tracking injuries and communicating with us and all of that stuff. And we have got into the off season. A couple of years ago it was shoulders, a couple of years before that it was ankles. So you always want to do a little bit of a self-dissection, right, going into the off season about maybe we need to focus more on ankle stability stuff, or, maybe we need to look at, what type of drills we're doing in practice that are leading to some of these shoulder injuries or whatnot. But as far as tracking the data, we weigh our guys in once a week. We're always checking their weights and trying to do a good job with hydration and making sure we're keeping weight on the guys we need to keep weight on. But for the most part, pretty vanilla as far as that goes.
Yeah, you bring up the injury side and tracking it. And I think one of the smartest things when I was at Baldwin Wallace University, we had excellent trainers from the Cleveland Clinic. Our head trainer I think it was Monday, would come in to our staff meeting and want the list of clips where players got hurt in the game and or practice. And they would look at those too. And they would look at what are they finding? Was there a deficiency in technique? How did this injury happen? And, it's not going to solve all the problems, but it certainly starts to come to light. And I remember, another college I was at, season before in particular had a really high percentage of knee injuries, and went back and looked at, well, how were we developing them? Were we hitting everything we needed to? And found that there could have been, and I wasn't there at the time, but the previous season and the off season, overdevelopment of, I think it was their quads. And so we had to refocus how we were doing things. But those things matter too. And being able to, like you said, have some kind of method of, at least at some point, being able to track those things, I think is important.
For sure.
So, Coach, you guys obviously have some big games ahead of you here. I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your insights, and congratulations on the win and being named our National Coach of the Week. And best of luck to you in the Ironman as you continue your season.
Thank you so much, Keith. Really honored to be here and appreciate all you do for the great game of high school football.
The National Coach of the Week is presented by Modern Football Technology. If you and your staff want to gain an edge with real-time analytics, it's not too late to get started. With this simple interface and quick onboarding, you can be up and running by Friday night. Visit modernfootball.com to book your demo and learn more. Follow All We're Doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K Grabowski.